The Grand Assembly Hall stretched out like a metal ocean. 847 different species had sent their best representatives to this emergency meeting. The air buzzed with fear. Translators worked overtime as creatures with tentacles, feathers, scales, and stranger things whispered to each other in panic. At the center of it all stood Emperor Zixthal. His body looked like living crystal, each facet catching the light and throwing it back in angry red flashes. 6 eyes, each the size of dinner plates, scanned the crowd with cold hatred. When he spoke, his voice made the metal floor vibrate. "The time has come," the Emperor announced. His words echoed through the hall like thunder. "The Cronin Empire will no longer tolerate the chaos of this so-called Galactic Confederation. We will bring order to every world, every system, every corner of space." 1,000 different creatures held their breath. The Cronin Empire was the stuff of nightmares. Their ships could crack planets in half. Their soldiers could survive in the vacuum of space. Their emperor had personally conquered 43 star systems. "You have one standard day cycle," Zixthal continued, his crystal body growing brighter with each word. "Surrender completely, or watch your worlds burn." The first to respond was Ambassador Velok of the Centauri Republic. The blue-skinned diplomat practically threw himself on the floor. "Great Emperor, we submit. Our fleets are yours to command." Next came the Arcturian Trade Union. Their representative, a creature that looked like a walking tree, fell to its knees. "We offer our entire merchant fleet as tribute." One by one, species after species declared their surrender. The fear in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Some delegates wept. Others shook so hard their translators couldn't work properly. In the back corner of the hall, almost hidden behind a group of tall, feathered beings, sat the human delegation. There were only 3 of them. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the middle, a woman in her 50s with graying hair and a bored expression. She wore a simple blue suit that looked plain next to all the exotic clothing around her. Her 2 assistants flanked her, equally unremarkable. Chen was reading something on her tablet. Her face showed about as much interest as someone waiting for a bus. Emperor Zixthal's 6 eyes swept across the room, counting surrenders like an accountant counting money. Then his gaze fell on the human section. "And what of the Terran delegation?" His voice boomed across the hall. Chen didn't look up. She scrolled down on her tablet, reading what appeared to be news articles. One of her assistants leaned over and whispered something. She nodded and kept reading. "Human!" the Emperor roared, his crystal body now glowing like a small sun. "I am speaking to you!" This time Chen glanced up, the way someone might look at a neighbor who was playing music too loud. She looked at the Emperor for exactly 2 seconds, then shrugged. It wasn't a dramatic shrug or a defiant gesture. It was the kind of shrug someone gives when asked if they want extra cheese on their sandwich. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out something that made the entire assembly gasp. It was a newspaper, an actual, physical newspaper made of real paper. Most species hadn't used physical text storage in centuries. Chen unfolded the newspaper with the casual precision of long practice. The sound of rustling paper seemed incredibly loud in the silent hall. She held it up and began reading, completely ignoring the most feared warlord in galactic history. The Emperor stared. In 300 years of conquest, no one had ever simply ignored him. Species begged, threatened, negotiated, or tried to run. No one had ever acted like he wasn't worth looking at. "Are you reading the news?" he asked. His voice had lost some of its thunder. Chen looked over the top of her paper. "Coffee prices are up again," she said in a conversational tone. "3rd time this month." The hall was so quiet that everyone could hear the paper rustling as she turned to page 2. Ambassador Velok looked like he might faint. The tree creature from Arcturus was making a sound like wind through leaves. Even the Emperor's own guard seemed confused. "Human," Zixthal said slowly. "I have just declared war on the entire galaxy." "Mm-hmm," Chen replied, not looking up. She appeared to be reading the sports section now. "I will destroy your homeworld." "That's nice." Chen folded the paper to read a different column. "Oh, look, they finally opened that new coffee shop on 5th Street. I've been waiting months for that." The Emperor's crystal body began to pulse with anger. "Do you understand what I am saying? I will reduce your planet to space dust." Chen sighed the way people sigh when interrupted during something important. She lowered her newspaper and looked at the Emperor with the patient expression of a teacher dealing with a difficult child. "I heard you the first time," she said. "You're declaring war on everyone. Very dramatic. Are you done now? Because I'm trying to read about the weather forecast." She raised the newspaper again, effectively dismissing the most powerful being in known space. The silence stretched on. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the gentle rustling of Chen's newspaper as she turned pages. Emperor Zixthal had conquered star systems. He had made entire species extinct. He had never, in his long life, been so completely dismissed. The human wasn't even pretending to be brave. She was genuinely, honestly bored by his threats. Finally, Chen folded up her newspaper and stood up. She tucked it under her arm and headed for the exit. Her assistants followed, both looking like nothing unusual had happened. "Ambassador Chen," called one of the other delegates, a purple creature with too many arms. "Where are you going?" Chen paused at the doorway. "Lunch," she said simply. This meeting ran longer than expected. As the humans left, the Emperor stood frozen in place, his crystal body flickering like a broken light. In all his conquests, he had never encountered anything like this. The rest of the assembly remained silent, watching the door where the humans had disappeared. Whatever happened next, they all knew they had just witnessed something unprecedented. Emperor Zixthal had declared war on the galaxy, and humanity's only response had been to check the weather. 3 days after the assembly meeting, the first news reports started coming in. The Cronin Empire had made good on their threats. The planet Zarion 7 was gone. Not conquered, not occupied, completely destroyed. 8 billion beings had lived there. Now there was nothing but glowing space dust. The galactic news networks played the footage over and over. Massive Cronin warships, each one the size of a small moon, had surrounded the planet. They fired once. The world cracked like an egg and fell apart. Emperor Zixthal appeared on every communication channel in the galaxy. His crystal form blazed with satisfaction. "This is what happens to those who resist the Empire," he announced. "The Zarion system chose to fight. This is their reward." The message was clear: submit or die. On Earth, in a small office building in Geneva, Ambassador Sarah Chen sat at her desk reading emails. Her assistant knocked on the doorframe. "Ma'am, the galactic networks are requesting a statement about the Zarion incident." Chen looked up from her computer screen. "What incident?" "The planet destruction, ma'am. 8 billion dead." "Oh, that." Chen went back to her emails. "Send them the standard response." The standard response was short. "The Terran Diplomatic Corps is monitoring the situation. We will issue updates as necessary." That was it. No condemnation, no threat of retaliation, no call for emergency meetings, just a bland acknowledgement that something had happened. The galaxy watched in horror as the Cronin Empire struck again. The Altarian homeworld lasted 6 hours. Their defense fleet was considered one of the strongest in known space. The Cronins went through it like tissue paper. Again, the Emperor broadcast his message across all channels. "See how easily the mighty fall. Your fleets mean nothing. Your weapons are toys. Surrender now, and some of you might survive." Species across the galaxy flooded Earth with desperate messages. The Centauri Republic sent 17 different appeals for humanity to negotiate with the Empire. The Arcturian Trade Union offered to pay humanity's tribute to the Emperor. Even proud species that had never asked for help before sent begging messages. Chen read them all during her lunch break while eating a sandwich. She sent the same reply to everyone. Thank you for your concern. The situation is being evaluated. On the streets of Earth, life continued exactly as before. Children went to school. Adults went to work. The stock market showed a small dip when the news broke, then recovered by closing time. Social media was more interested in a funny video of a dog wearing sunglasses than in galactic genocide. The only sign that humans were even aware of the crisis was a small uptick in sales of popcorn and soda. People were treating the Emperor's broadcasts like entertainment. The third planet to die was Vega Prime. This time, the Emperor made it personal. He took command of the attack himself, his flagship leading the assault. The planet's leaders sent a final message as their world burned. Why won't the humans help us? Don't they understand what's happening? Emperor Zixthal was beginning to understand something himself. Every species in the galaxy had reacted to his threats exactly as expected. They begged. They surrendered. They died screaming. All except one. The humans weren't acting afraid. They weren't even acting defiant. They were acting like none of this mattered to them at all. After Vega Prime, the Emperor sent a direct message to Earth. It appeared on every screen on the planet simultaneously, overriding all other broadcasts. Humans of Earth, his crystalline form filled the screens. Your casual dismissal of my power ends now. I have destroyed 3 worlds in 5 days. Billions are dead. Surrender immediately, or you will be next. In her office, Chen watched the broadcast while doing a crossword puzzle. When it ended, she went back to her puzzle. 12 across. Breakfast pastry, 7 letters. She wrote donut, but it didn't fit. Maybe bagel? No, still too short. Her assistant appeared in the doorway again. Ma'am, the Emperor's message. I saw it, Chen said, erasing bagel and trying muffin. Get me the president online too, would you? The call lasted 30 seconds. Chen here. Did you see the crystal guy's message? Yeah, okay. No, I think we're good for now. Mm-hmm. Oh, and order more coffee for the office. We're running low. That afternoon, Earth's response went out to every communication network in the galaxy. It was Chen, sitting in the same office where she answered email. She looked directly into the camera with the expression of someone reading a grocery list. This is Ambassador Chen of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. We've received several messages regarding current galactic events. Please be assured that the situation is being monitored. Earth continues to welcome peaceful trade and cultural exchange with all species. Current weather in Geneva is partly cloudy with a high of 22 degrees Celsius. Have a pleasant day. The message lasted 43 seconds. Chen spent more time talking about the weather than about the destruction of 3 entire civilizations. Across the galaxy, beings watched in amazement. Some thought the humans were incredibly brave. Others thought they were insane. A few began to wonder if there was something about humanity that they didn't understand. On his flagship, Emperor Zixthal watched Chen's message 17 times. Each viewing made him angrier. The human wasn't just dismissing his threats, she was treating them like background noise. The Empire had weapons that could sterilize star systems. They had armies that had never lost a battle. They had conquered half the galaxy through pure force. And this human was talking about the weather. The Emperor called his generals together. How long to reach the Sol system? 6 days at maximum speed, my lord. Then we go now. I want every ship in the fleet. I want the humans to see death coming for them from 1,000,000 kilometers away. I want them to have time to think about their arrogance before they die. As the largest war fleet in galactic history began moving toward Earth, the humans continued their daily routines. Coffee shops stayed open. Movies played in theaters. Someone in Tokyo uploaded a video of their cat knocking things off a table. The galaxy held its breath and waited for the end of the world. Earth kept spinning, and its people kept acting like nothing unusual was happening at all. The Cronin war fleet was a sight that had made entire civilizations surrender without firing a shot. 3,000 ships, each one bristling with enough firepower to glass a continent. At the center flew the Emperor's flagship, a crystalline behemoth that looked like a mountain with engines. Emperor Zixthal stood on his command bridge, his 6 eyes fixed on the tactical display showing their approach to the Sol system. 4 days of travel at maximum speed. 4 days to reach the arrogant humans who thought they could ignore the might of the Empire. "My lord," his tactical officer reported, "we're receiving standard traffic control messages from the system." "What?" "Earth Traffic Control is asking us to register our flight plan and declare our cargo manifest. They're treating us like merchants." The Emperor's crystalline form flared brighter. "Show me." The message appeared on screen in perfectly calm, professional tones. "Welcome to Sol System. Please transmit ship registry, destination, and cargo information for processing. Current wait time for large convoys is approximately 45 minutes. Thank you for choosing Sol System Spaceport Authority." "They think we're cargo haulers," whispered one of the bridge crew. The Emperor said nothing. He was too angry to speak. As the fleet drew closer to Earth, their sensors painted a picture that made no sense. The Sol system was busy with normal space traffic. Passenger liners carried families on vacation to the outer planets. Freight haulers moved goods between worlds. Tiny personal craft zipped around like insects. Not one military vessel could be detected. Earth's orbital platforms looked like civilian space stations. There were no defense satellites, no weapon platforms, no fleet formations waiting to meet them. "Are they hiding their defenses?" asked the tactical officer. "Keep scanning," the Emperor ordered. "They must have something." But 3 days of intensive scanning revealed nothing. Earth looked defenseless, more than defenseless. It looked like the inhabitants had no idea a war fleet was approaching. The Emperor opened a direct communication channel to Earth. He would speak to this Ambassador Chen one final time before destroying her world. The call connected to Chen's office. She was at her desk, reading a physical newspaper again. This time she had a cup of coffee next to her and what appeared to be a half-eaten donut. "Ambassador Chen," the Emperor said, his voice carrying all the authority of a conqueror. Chen looked up from her paper with mild annoyance, like someone interrupted while reading an interesting article. "Oh, hello? You're the crystal fellow from the assembly, right? How's your day going?" "How is my day going?" The Emperor's voice rose to a roar. "I am leading the largest fleet in galactic history toward your homeworld." "That's nice," Chen replied, taking a sip of coffee. "Long trip?" "I am here to destroy you." Chen nodded absently and went back to her newspaper. "The asteroid belt can be tricky this time of year. Lots of mining traffic. Hope you filed the proper flight plan." The Emperor stared at the screen. This human was discussing space traffic while a fleet of planet killers approached her world. "Human, in 12 hours my fleet will reach Earth orbit. Your planet will be reduced to cosmic dust. Your species will be extinct. Do you understand?" Chen folded down one corner of her newspaper to look at him properly. "Could you maybe keep it down a little? I'm reading about the Cubs' chances this season, and it's actually pretty interesting for once." "The Cubs?" "Baseball team. They might actually make the playoffs this year. First time in decades." She showed him the sports section like he might be interested. "Says here their new pitcher has the best ERA in the league." The Emperor's 6 eyes bulged. "I don't care about your sports. I care about conquest, about destruction, about making your species an example to the galaxy." Chen put down her newspaper with a small sigh. "Look, Mr. What was your name again?" "Emperor Zixthal." master of the Cronin Empire, conqueror of worlds, destroyer of... Right, that's a bit long. Can I just call you Zix? Chen picked up her coffee cup. Anyway, Zix, I'm sure you're having a lot of fun with your conquest thing, but some of us have work to do. Now, was there something specific you needed? Or can I get back to my reading? For a moment, the Emperor couldn't speak. In his 300 years of life, he had inspired fear, respect, hatred, and desperate hope. He had never inspired casual annoyance. I need you to understand, he said slowly, that in 12 hours, you will all be dead. Chen had already gone back to her newspaper. Oh, look at that. They're opening a new taco place downtown. I should try that for lunch tomorrow. The communication ended. The Emperor stood alone on his bridge, staring at a blank screen. His generals waited in nervous silence. My lord, his tactical officer finally ventured, the humans show no signs of military preparation, no evacuation, no defensive measures. Should we proceed? The Emperor looked out at Earth through the main view screen. The blue and green world hung in space like a peaceful jewel. Lights from cities sparkled on the night side. Satellites moved in gentle orbits. Everything looked completely normal. Yes, he said finally. We proceed. Whatever game they're playing, it ends tomorrow. But even as he gave the order, doubt crept into his mind. 3 species had begged for mercy before he destroyed them. The humans were reading newspapers and talking about baseball. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. On Earth, life continued with stubborn normalcy. The morning news mentioned the approaching fleet as the 4th story, after weather, traffic, and a feature about a lost cat that had been found after 3 weeks. And in space news, the anchor said cheerfully, a large convoy of vessels is approaching Earth orbit. Traffic control reminds everyone that the recommended viewing distance for large ships is at least 50 kilometers. And now for sports. In coffee shops and offices around the world, people glanced up at news screens, shrugged, and went back to their morning routines. A few space enthusiasts set up telescopes to watch the convoy arrive. Most people didn't bother. Ambassador Chen finished her newspaper over a second cup of coffee, then started working through her email backlog. She had a meeting with the Japanese trade delegation at 2, dinner plans with her sister at 7, and a dentist appointment on Thursday. Outside her office window, the largest invasion fleet in galactic history closed in on Earth like a slowly tightening fist. Chen made a note to herself to pick up milk on the way home. They were running low. Emperor Zixthal stood on his command bridge, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. The blue world looked peaceful, almost innocent. City lights sparkled on the dark side of the planet like scattered diamonds. All ships, assume attack formation, he commanded. 3,000 warships spread out in a perfect sphere around Earth. Each vessel locked weapons onto the planet below. The formation was beautiful in its precision and terrible in its purpose. Target their major population centers, the Emperor ordered. I want the first strike to kill at least half their species. The weapon systems charged with a deep humming sound that vibrated through every ship in the fleet. Energy readings climbed toward maximum. On 1,000 different screens, targeting computers locked onto cities, factories, spaceports. Weapons charged and ready, my lord. Emperor Zixthal raised one crystalline arm. For a moment, he hesitated. The humans had been so casual about their approaching death. It almost seemed wrong to kill beings who were reading newspapers and planning lunch. Then he remembered the disrespect, the dismissal, the way Ambassador Chen had treated him like an annoying interruption. Fire. 3,000 ships opened fire at the same moment. Energy beams that could crack continents streaked toward Earth in brilliant streams of destruction. The combined firepower was enough to shatter the planet's crust and boil away the oceans. The beams reached the atmosphere and simply vanished, not reflected, not absorbed, not deflected by shields. They just stopped existing, as if someone had turned off a switch. "What happened?" the Emperor demanded. His tactical officer stared at his instruments in confusion. "Unknown, my lord. Energy readings show the weapons fired normally, but the beams just ended. Fire again." This time, every ship in the fleet fired everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, fusion missiles, gravity bombs. Enough destructive force to sterilize a dozen worlds erupted from the Kronan fleet. The result was exactly the same. Every attack simply stopped existing about 1,000 kilometers from Earth's surface. "Impossible," breathed the tactical officer. "Nothing can stop that much firepower." Emperor Zixthal stared at the peaceful planet below. Earth hung in space, completely unharmed. Not even a scorch mark showed where the attacks had struck. A communication request appeared on his screen. Earth was calling him. The Emperor accepted the call. Ambassador Chen appeared on screen, still sitting at her desk. She had put down her newspaper and was looking directly at the camera with the patient expression of a teacher explaining something obvious to a slow student. "Oh, that," she said before the Emperor could speak. "Yeah, we figured out how to just turn off hostile energy about 2 centuries ago. Haven't really needed to mention it since nobody's bothered us much since we joined the Confederation." The Emperor's 6 eyes widened. "You what?" "Turn off hostile energy. You know, weapons fire, bombs, that sort of thing." Chen spoke like she was discussing the weather. "Pretty handy, actually. Cuts way down on property damage." "That's impossible." Chen shrugged. "Well, it's more complicated than just turning it off. We actually create a localized field that convinces hostile energy that it doesn't want to exist anymore. The energy decides on its own to stop being energy. Energy doesn't make decisions. It does if you ask it nicely." Chen checked her watch, a simple digital model that probably cost less than the Emperor's breakfast. "Also, you might want to check on your homeworld right about now." "My homeworld? What about my homeworld?" Instead of answering, Chen simply smiled. It was a small, polite smile that somehow made the Emperor's crystalline form go cold. The Emperor's communications officer looked up from his station, his face pale. "My lord, we're receiving an emergency transmission from Kronan Prime." "Put it through." The image that appeared on screen was not what the Emperor expected. Instead of his gleaming capital city, he saw a peaceful park. Children were playing on swings. Adults sat on benches reading books. A sign in the background read, "Welcome to Sunny Meadows Resort. Complimentary vacation, courtesy of Earth Management." A Kronan general appeared on screen, looking embarrassed. "My lord, we've been evacuated." "Evacuated? What do you mean evacuated?" "The entire homeworld, sir. All 15 billion of us. We woke up this morning and found ourselves here. It's actually quite nice." "They have a buffet." The Emperor's mind reeled. "Where is our fleet, our orbital defenses, our planetary weapons?" "Gone, sir. Just gone. The humans left a note saying they relocated everything to prevent accidents." The general held up a piece of paper. "It says here that all our weapons have been stored safely and will be returned once we learn to play nicely with others." "And the fleet?" "Also gone, sir. Every ship except the ones here with you. The note says they've been temporarily relocated to prevent any unfortunate incidents." Emperor Zixthal looked around his own bridge. He was still here. His invasion fleet was still here. But everything else, his empire, his homeworld, his backup forces, had simply been moved somewhere else. Chen's voice came through the speakers. "We thought about relocating your invasion force too. But that seemed rude. You came all this way just to talk to us." The Emperor turned back to the communication screen. Chen was pouring herself a fresh cup of coffee. "What are you?" he whispered. "Humans. Chen replied. We're the folks who handle crisis management for this part of the galaxy. Has been our job for about 300 years now. Crisis management? You know, prevent wars, stop genocides, that sort of thing. Usually we don't have to do much. Most species figure out how to get along without us having to intervene. Chen added sugar to her coffee. The beings who gave us the job said it would be mostly paperwork. They were right, until today. The beings who gave you the job? Oh, they moved on to other dimensions ages ago. Nice folks. But they had things to do in realities where the math works differently. Chen took a sip of coffee and made a satisfied sound. They left us in charge because humans are good at dealing with unreasonable behavior. The Emperor slumped in his command chair. His empire was gone. His fleet was stranded. His invasion had been stopped without the humans even putting down their newspapers. What happens now? He asked. Chen seemed to consider this seriously. Well, that depends. Are you planning to keep trying to conquer the galaxy? The Emperor looked around at his bridge crew, all staring at him hopefully. I don't think I can. You've taken everything. Not everything, Chen corrected. We've just moved it somewhere safe. Think of it as a timeout. She smiled again. If you'd like, we can discuss a more diplomatic approach to interstellar relations. The Confederation could always use another member species. You want us to join the same organization we just tried to destroy? Everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is learning from them. Chen finished her coffee and set down the cup. Besides, your people seem to be enjoying their vacation. The resort has mini-golf. Emperor Zixthal, conqueror of worlds and master of the greatest empire in galactic history, put his head in his hands and wondered how his life had become so strange. 1 month later, the Grand Assembly Hall looked very different. The same 847 species were present, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Instead of fear and panic, there was something that might have been described as cautious optimism. Emperor Zixthal sat in a much smaller chair than before. His crystalline form had lost its angry red glow and now shimmered in calmer blues and greens. Most notably, he wore what appeared to be a souvenir T-shirt under his ceremonial armor. The shirt read, "I visited Earth and all I got was this lousy T-shirt," in cheerful yellow letters. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the central podium, somehow managing to read her newspaper while addressing the assembly. She had perfected the art of looking like she was paying attention to boring meetings while actually checking the crossword puzzle. As I was saying, Chen continued without looking up from her paper, the Terran Diplomatic Corps has been appointed as the galaxy's crisis management team. This appointment was made approximately 300 years ago by the previous management. A delegate from the Rigel system raised a tentacle. Previous management? Nice folks, but they evolved beyond physical existence, left us a manual and a really good coffee machine. Chen turned to the sports section. The manual is mostly about preventing large-scale conflicts and making sure everyone plays nicely together. But why didn't you tell us? Asked the Centauri representative. Chen finally looked up from her newspaper, wearing the expression of someone explaining why water is wet. Because the job has been pretty boring until now, most species figure out how to get along without us having to file the paperwork. She gestured toward Emperor Zixthal. The Cronin situation was, let's call it a learning experience for everyone involved. The Emperor shifted uncomfortably in his smaller chair. During his month at Sunny Meadows Resort, he had discovered several new things about himself. He enjoyed mini-golf. He was surprisingly good at shuffleboard. And he had never realized how stressful constant conquest had been until he stopped doing it. The new policy, Chen announced, is that any species wishing to declare war on anyone else must first submit Form 27B to the Human Diplomatic Corps for review. A small creature with too many eyes raised what might have been a hand. What kind of review? Standard bureaucratic review. We'll evaluate the request for reasonableness, check if you've tried talking first, that sort of thing. Chen turned a page in her newspaper. Processing time is 5 to 7 business days. There's a small administrative fee. How small? Asked someone from the back. 50 credits, payable in any standard galactic currency, or coffee beans. We're always running low on coffee. The assembly stirred with confused murmurs. The most feared administrative process in galactic history was being handled like a parking permit application. Emperor Zixthal raised his hand tentatively, like a student in class. "Excuse me, Ambassador Chen?" Chen looked over her newspaper at him. "Yes? The form, is it available online?" "Of course, but you'll need to create an account first." Chen went back to reading. Password requirements are pretty strict. Needs at least 1 capital letter, 1 number, and 1 symbol. Standard Earth security protocols. And if someone declares war without filing the form? Chen's expression didn't change, but somehow the temperature in the room seemed to drop a few degrees. "We prefer not to think about that. It involves a lot more paperwork on our end." The Arcturian delegate leaned forward. "What about the Cronin fleet and their homeworld? All safely stored in a pocket dimension until they complete their rehabilitation program." Chen folded her newspaper to work on the crossword puzzle. "Should be done in a few more weeks. The program includes conflict resolution training, anger management, and a surprisingly comprehensive introduction to miniature golf." "Miniature golf? Turns out it's very therapeutic? Who knew?" Emperor Zixthal nodded vigorously. "The windmill hole is my favorite." The assembly processed this information in stunned silence. The most feared empire in galactic history had been defeated by bureaucracy and recreational sports. Chen looked up from her crossword. "Oh, and we're implementing a new early warning system. If anyone starts building an excessive number of warships or making threatening speeches, we'll send them a polite email asking them to calm down. And if they don't, we'll send a slightly less polite email. And after that..." Chen shrugged. "Usually the second email works. Nobody likes dealing with customer service." A delegate from a small system in the Outer Rim stood up nervously. "Ambassador Chen, what if someone has a legitimate territorial dispute? Submit Form 12A for mediation services. Processing time is 2 to 3 business days. We have a very good success rate with reasonable beings." "And unreasonable beings?" Chen's smile was small and pleasant, and somehow deeply unsettling. "We help them become more reasonable." The Emperor nodded again. "The rehabilitation program is actually quite nice. They have a pool." "Moving on," Chen announced, returning to her newspaper. "The Confederation has voted to establish a new Department of Galactic Harmony. They'll be handling the day-to-day administrative work so we can focus on the more serious situations." "What qualifies as a serious situation?" "Anything that would require us to put down our coffee." Chen found the puzzle section and pulled out a pen. "We really prefer not to be interrupted during coffee breaks." The meeting continued for another hour, but it felt different from every previous assembly gathering. Instead of existential dread, there was a strange sense of safety. Someone was in charge, someone competent and impossibly powerful, who treated galactic crises like minor paperwork problems. As the delegates began to file out, Emperor Zixthal approached the podium where Chen was finishing her crossword. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "I wanted to thank you." Chen looked up with mild surprise. "For what?" "For not destroying us, for giving us a chance to be different." "Oh, that." Chen waved dismissively. "Destruction is messy, plus it creates more paperwork. This way works out better for everyone." The rehabilitation program helped. I never realized how much I enjoyed peaceful activities. Most people don't, until they try them. Chen finished writing in her crossword puzzle. 7 letters for galactic peace. Turns out it was Tuesday after all. Tuesday? That's when the new intergalactic harmony forms were due. Funny how things work out. As the Emperor walked away, Chen packed up her newspaper and headed for the exit. She had a dentist appointment at 3, and she hated being late. Behind her, the Grand Assembly Hall buzzed with the sound of civilizations learning to file the proper paperwork before starting wars. In the end, humanity had saved the galaxy not through superior firepower or brilliant strategy, but by treating cosmic conflicts like minor administrative problems and requiring everyone to fill out forms in triplicate. It was, Chen reflected as she waited for the elevator, probably the most human solution possible.